could the Yankees have put any of their second level pitchers in, any other of the guys that they wanted to just get their work done, and the Mets couldn't hit these guys? I mean, I know it's just the first two games. It means nothing. But for a franchise that has a cloud hanging over them, and usually the Yankees are that big cloud, they didn't do any of their Met fans any favors by giving them any reason to think that they might be a team to beat in the NL East this season. At least it looks like offensively. You know, it's funny because they've done simulations. You know, Baseball Reference has done a simulation. And through through July 19th, the Met team that they have through that simulation is hitting like 210 as a team. And they have 44 wins and 55 losses. So it really wasn't much different than what we saw in the first couple of exhibition games. And by the way, I mean, it's just boring. I mean, there's no noise. And you know, I'm happy that baseball is back, and I think it might be different in the regular season. But it was hard to watch. I mean, what did you guys think?
First of all, I don't look at an exhibition game where I'm going to blow it out of proportion. The Mets didn't have their starting lineup in against the Mets against the Yankees in any of the games. Did the Yankees outplay them? Absolutely. Did the Mets hit the ball? No, they did not. But their lineup, you had a bunch of prospect players. There weren't a lot of big superstars playing in the game. That lineup was not the full-fledged lineup that we expect the Mets to have, especially in the middle of their lineup with the Panda Bear, Pete Alonso, and Yoenis Cespedes. We didn't see that. So I know you want to take shots at the New York Mets and where the New York Mets were in their last two games against the Yankees. I don't look at exhibition games to even attack the Mets. We'll see when that lineup goes in on Friday when they play against a very good team like the Braves. The Yankees have enough to worry about with the Washington Nationals. So I'm not really upset when I looked at the Mets and the Mets couldn't score any runs against the Yankees. The Yankees were playing a bunch of backup players too. So the Yankees didn't even have their star spreading offense that they've had over the last couple of years. So let's wait. Let's hold on. It's going to take a couple of days, a couple of games for the Mets to figure things out. I think the Mets will be just fine.
Well, I think that starting the season against Atlanta is probably one of the worst teams to date because they have real problems with Atlanta. Now, I know Freddie Freeman is not playing, and Markakis is sitting out, and they didn't sign Puig after he tested positive for the coronavirus. So they're a little bit weaker offensively, but the Braves pitching still always seems to give the Mets problems, no matter who is out there. And they've really struggled against them the last couple of seasons. So if they can beat the Braves, that's going to be a big step for them. So this weekend series, I mean, it's only the first three games, but you only got 60 games. So everything matters more now. And I think beating the Braves would be a good start for them because mentally that's a huge handicap for them. Don't you think so?
I do. I think here's the thing. I think the Mets are going to have a better series against the Braves than you think they're going to have. Now, I do believe that the Braves have the Mets number over the years. You saw what Chipper Jones has done over the years. And really, what the pitching staff does, you have Greg Maddux, you Tom Glavine, all these different pitchers, Smoltz, all these guys that have pitched very, very well over the years against the Mets, and the Mets couldn't hit against any of them. But I think this is a different Mets team. I really do. I think their lineup is going to be a lot better than we've seen in a long, long time. In a 60-game season, I think it fares and varies for the Mets more than the Braves, more than the Yankees, because it's a short season. And if the Mets get hot, we saw last year in the first 10, 12 games, the Mets were hot. If they can get an early lead, an early move. Early move and a hot start for them, I think it could help the Mets and help the Mets prevail moving forward in a 60-game season. So as a Yankee fan, and I think the Mets, I have more faith this year in a 60-game season with the Mets than I do with the Yankees because the Yankees use 162 games to really get strong before the end of the season with the pitching staff that they have. They are going into the season 100% healthy, but again, they don't have Luis Severino, and Luis Severino and that pitching staff could really make them that much better. So I think the Mets are a lot better than you think they are. I think the Mets are going to win this series this weekend against the Braves.
Well, I think it'd be a good start if they could. But I think the Mets' problem is going to be what it was last year, and more teams are going to have to rely on their bullpen because their starters are going to need a little time to stretch out a little bit. And I think, Speedy was saying the great start the Mets got up to was the manager's first year. I think that was 2018. They were like, what, 10-1 or something?
I think they were 16-2, I think it was.
Yeah, and then
April.
And they put a game against the Nationals where they had like a 5-run lead.
Yeah.
Then it started their downfall. Yeah. Look, I don't think the Mets are going to be a team that's under 500, but their bullpen still scares me, and the middle relief especially scares me. And when these guys are getting whiplash at some of the balls that were going out of Yankee Stadium, that to me would be the type of guys we're going to see in crucial moments. So I would like to see some of the younger guys like a David Peterson, who had taken number one a couple of years ago, to get more chances. But we'll see. I mean, it's only the first couple of games. You're right. You can't judge anything by it. But as far as just the gameplay itself, though, it's really, really different than what I expected. I had no idea what I would expect, but it was almost like I was watching just batting practice, which essentially, without fans or crowd noise, it turns into.
There was crowd noise. You didn't hear it?
Well, it wasn't real.
Well, I mean, a little bit pumped in. I mean,
but it still sounds like a crowd. The only thing I don't like, I don't like the cardboard. I don't like the cardboard cutouts in the background. I don't like that. But as far as making the stadium a little bit louder, where it sounds like fans are in, it sounds just like the ballpark had fans in it. So I don't think it is as bad as you make it seem. But I do believe that those people, those cutout people, make absolutely no sense. I think that was stupid.
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense. But I'm glad it's back, and I know the players don't all like Can to get back, and the owners, for as many differences they have, at least they're back and playing. I think it'll be a big help for most people. I was looking at some of the numbers, like through 60 games. I wanted to put together some kind of a streak, as far as guys that have done well through the first 60 games. The only player ever to hit 400 through this team's first 60 games was Chipper Jones in 2000. I believe it was 2000. One of the years, 2000 or 2001, and he hit 408. You would think that it's more, it would have been done more, but it really hasn't. But I think this year there are a bunch of guys who could do that. Keep being how often they get pitched to, and if their team is in games or not. I think O'Neill, with the way he hits, could be one of those guys, but it all depends where he bats in the order, if they're going to lead him off or they're going to bat a little bit further down. But another thing I looked at was best 60-game periods from the start of the season. And the record for that is a 1912 Giants who won 49 games of the 60. But in that there's 5 teams that won 46 or more in their first 60 games. The 1998 Yankees were one of them, and the 1939 Yankees were another one. They both wound up to win World Series. So you can have a really good first 60 games and win a World Series. And I think that with the talent the Yankees have, they're so deep at every position. They haven't had much starting pitching that will jump out at you the last couple of years, and they've still been pretty good. I mean, last year they had so many injuries, they won 103 games. So I think that they're going to be stronger. I mean, when I looked at them this weekend, I didn't see any real deficiency in their batting order. I don't think there's any batter you can look at and say, this guy's not going to hit 20 homers during a regular season. He's not going to hit, 150 hits during a regular season. So I think the Yankees lineup is really built well for this stretch of games.
Potent. They're a potent lineup.
And deep.
What's that?
I said they're a potent lineup.
Absolutely. I think they're the best in baseball. So we'll
Dodgers have the best lineup in baseball than the Yankees.
I don't know. Dodgers are good, but I think the Yankees. I think Andrew Hart's going to have a great year.
I think the Yankees have the better all-around team than the Dodgers. I think the Yankees are the most talented team with their pitching staff, their bullpen, and their lineup. I think the Yankees are the best all-around team in baseball. But as far as the lineup is concerned, when you add Mookie Betts to that lineup, a very dangerous lineup, I think they probably – I mean, you could argue Giancarlo Stanton, if he's healthy, they could be dangerous too. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
Well, I wrote an article today on some of the best bets for the season. And I'm not an avid bettor, but I think that there are a couple of things that when I'm looking at for the regular season really jumped out at me, where you had team win totals and player MVPs. That kind of stuff really kind of interests me because I wanted to see what the experts would say. So now, to me, I only view a good bet as something that you bet as little as you have to, and you win a lot, and you still like have a pretty good, not a great chance, but I'd say better than 40% chance of it happening. And to me, the Red Sox at 30 and a half, to me, I think they're going to be awful. I mean, their pitching staff is brutal. Their bullpen is even worse. And they might score 6 runs a game, but they're going to give up like 7 or 8.
Yeah, and then not even no Mookie Betts either, so that hinders that offense too.
Yeah, and they're going to be facing the Blue Jays and the Mets and the Yankees and the Braves, and a lot of potent lineups, the Phillies as well. So I don't know if their pitching can handle this short stint with the guys they have. I mean, if you've seen their rotation outside of Eovaldi and Perez, they really have nobody else that's had extended major league time. I mean, they traded for one of an ex-Diamondback, but they really don't have much, and their bullpen is even worse. So I feel this is going to be one of those off years for the Red Sox. They take like a year off every couple of years, and then they come back and win the World Series. So
they're not winning no World Series anymore. Their pitching staff stinks. Their farm system is terrible. They got to rebuild that farm system. Mark, they got to rebuild that farm system. That farm system is one of the worst in the league. You know how long it takes to build a farm system? It takes years. Years.
Look, I know all the facts, but when the Red Sox have won in 2013...
This is a different team. They have Mookie Betts coming up. They have all these different players coming up from the farm system. They don't have that anymore.
Mark, and how often do you see years like that, too? You're right. That was an ultimate scrap heap type team. Right. But how often do you see years like that? And if it does happen, was it going to happen from the same team? I can't see it either.
I think it happened in 2011. They got rid of all their guys, and then they went in 2013. Then in 2013, they have a little scrap heap around 2015, and then they win the World Series in 2018. So they've done it twice now, and everything Boston, it's like flipped around ever since Brady started to play. So I hope that I have no love for the Red Sox. I would love to see Boston fans go back to suffering like they did for so many years. But I don't know. Being for a team that hasn't won since 1986, I'm a little jealous, I guess. But as far as other teams, just to make the World Series, and I have the Cubs at 2,200. You bet 2,200, or bet 100, you win 2,200. I think a Cub team that still has Lester. They have a very, very good lineup. Their overall pitching. Who's the solid right-hander that they have?
Kyle Hendricks.
Hendricks, that's right. I always forget about him because he has very mediocre stuff, but he's
he's an up and down kind of pitcher too. He's good one year, bad the next.
Yeah, but they also have Kimbrel in the bullpen now. I think he's has some innings on him, but if he can stabilize that bullpen, the Cubs, I think, with the offensive firepower that they still have, can be a team that can surprise. And in the American League, I think that team is Oakland. Because Oakland still has a lot of offensive talent. Chris Davis had an off year, and he's also my pick for AL MVP when you would look at the odds that he's getting.
You keep saying that. Davis, the problem with Davis, he strikes out a lot. Right. He's a great power hitter. He's a great power hitter, but power doesn't make you an MVP. It doesn't.
And he consistently, very consistently, hits 247.
I think that if you drive in 112 and hit 44 homers...
He's not hitting 112 in 60 games.
No, obviously not. But I'm saying that's what he's averaged 3 seasons before that. So last year I view it more as an anomaly. He had an off year last year, still had 23 homers and 76 RBI. But his OPS was like a career low 6-something.
Mm-hmm. But
usually up around 900. So again, this is the least amount that you have to bet to get the most. So I'm not looking for guys that are obvious candidates, But I think he would be an interesting guy. Didi in the National League, I think, is an interesting guy, too, because he's going to play in a small ballpark. He had 24 homers, 81 RBIs with the Yankees from 2016 to 2018. And he can handle pressure because he replaced Derek Jeter. So there's nothing this guy hasn't seen. He's a big-time performer. And I think he's really going to help the Phillies lineup.